You think you know what you want. You're lying to yourself. And worse, you don't even realize it. That's what he said to me, the mentor I idolized, the one whose approval I chased for years. His words cut through me like a razor, leaving me in a kind of pain I couldn't explain. It wasn't anger. It wasn't sadness. It was truth. And deep down, I knew it. I grew up with one goal: to be liked, to be the person people admired, talked about, invited to their parties, and celebrated. It wasn't just a desire. It was a need. I learned early on that being liked was the currency of success. The more people approved of you, the further you got. So I did what anyone desperate for approval would do. I worked hard to become the version of myself people wanted to see. I laughed at jokes I didn't find funny. I said yes when I wanted to say no. I wore the clothes they liked, the mask they approved of, and for a while, it worked. I got the attention, the praise, the validation. My social media posts were flooded with likes and comments. At work, I was the golden child, the one who stayed late, volunteered for extra projects, and never pushed back. But then one day, everything changed. It was a routine Monday morning. Coffee in hand, I walked into a meeting with my boss and the leadership team. I was excited, no, pumped. I had spent weeks preparing for this presentation, staying up late, missing dinners, all to ensure it was flawless. The room was full of power players, the kind of people whose opinions could make or break your career. And I wanted their approval. I needed it. I started my pitch. Slide after slide. I could see the nods, the smiles. My heart raced with pride. But then it happened. Midway through my presentation, my boss interrupted me. "This is good," he said, his tone casual. "But it's not really you, is it?" The room went silent. I froze. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "You're saying all the right things," he said. "But I don't think you believe half of it." The room exploded with nervous laughter, but I wasn't laughing. My face burned with embarrassment. He was wrong, wasn't he? I believed in this. I worked so hard on this. Didn't I? That moment planted a seed of doubt in my mind. It wasn't just a humiliation. It was the unsettling feeling that he might have been right. For years, I had shaped myself into someone I thought people wanted me to be. But in doing so, I had no idea who I actually was. I started to notice things I hadn't before. The way I avoided conflict, even when I disagreed. The way I went out of my way to please people who didn't even like me. The way I stayed silent when I wanted to scream. Every decision I made was driven by one question: will they like me for this? And then one night, it all came crashing down. It was a Friday evening, and I was scrolling through social media, watching people I barely knew live their best lives. The trips, the accomplishments, the curated happiness. I felt a gnawing emptiness in my chest, a black hole sucking the life out of me. I had done everything right, hadn't I? I had played the game, followed the rules, earned the praise. So why did I feel so hollow? I set my phone down and stared at the ceiling. That's when the tears came. Quiet at first, then uncontrollable. I cried for the years I had wasted trying to be someone I wasn't. I cried for the opportunities one had lost because I was too scared to stand out. I cried because I didn't know who I was anymore. And when the tears finally stopped, I made a decision. The next morning, I called the one person I knew could help, my mentor. He was a no-nonsense kind of guy, someone who spoke the truth, even when it hurt. When I told him what I was going through, he didn't offer sympathy. He didn't try to make me feel better. Instead, he asked me one question that changed everything. Who are you living for? The words hit me like a brick. I opened my mouth to answer, but no words came out. You're living for them, he said. The people you want to like you. The ones whose opinions you'll forget in 10 years. And until you stop, you'll never be free. Let me ask you something, he continued. Are you willing to be disliked? The question startled me. Disliked? I repeated. Why would I want that? Because, he said, the people who matter will respect you for it. And the ones who don't, they never mattered anyway. I didn't believe him at first. Being disliked felt like failure. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized he was right. My fear of disapproval was a chain, and I was the one holding the key. But could I do it? Could I face the criticism, the judgment, the rejection? There was only one way to find out. The first test came sooner than I expected. A colleague asked me to take on a project that I had no time for. Normally, I would have said yes without hesitation, sacrificing my sanity to keep the peace. But this time, I paused. I can't take that on right now, I said. I have too much on my plate. The room fell silent. My colleague raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised. Are you sure? He asked. Yes, I said, my voice steady. And just like that, the world didn't end. In fact, something surprising happened. He respected my honesty. It was a small victory, but it gave me the confidence to keep going. Not everyone was as understanding. When I started setting boundaries and speaking my truth, some people didn't like it. They called me selfish, difficult, even arrogant. At first, their criticism stung. I second-guessed myself constantly, wondering if I was making a mistake. But then I remembered my mentor's words. The people who matter will respect you for it, and the ones who don't, they never mattered anyway. He was right. The more I stayed true to myself, the more I realized who my real supporters were and who wasn't worth my time. Over time, something incredible happened. I felt free. Free from the need to impress. Free from the fear of judgment. Free to live a life that felt true to me. I started pursuing passions I had buried for years, speaking up in meetings and building deeper, more authentic relationships. I wasn't perfect. There were still moments of doubt, but for the first time, I felt like I was living for me. One day, I asked my mentor why he had been so blunt with me that first time. Because, he said, most people never learn this lesson. They spend their whole lives chasing approval, only to realize too late that it's a game they can't win. He leaned in closer, his voice firm. The only approval you need is your own, but to earn it, you have to be willing to be disliked. Being disliked isn't easy. It's uncomfortable. It's scary. And it's lonely at times. But it's also the most liberating thing you'll ever do. Because when you stop living for others, you start living for yourself. And that's real freedom. So now, I'll ask you the same question my mentor asked me. Are you willing to be disliked? Because if you are, everything will change. The courage to be disliked might cost you everything. We spend our lives trying to be liked, accepted, and admired. But what if that very desire is holding you back from true freedom and happiness? In the next 10 minutes, you're going to discover why embracing the courage to be disliked is the key to living a life of purpose. This isn't about being intentionally offensive or disregarding others. It's about something far more profound and liberating. Chapter 1. The Illusion of Likeability. Remember when you were a teenager? Every decision revolved around fitting in, being cool, not standing out for the wrong reasons. But as you grew older, something changed. Or did it? Here's the reality. The average person spends about 70% of their waking hours worrying about what others think of them. That's a staggering amount of mental energy wasted on an unwinnable game. Let's break down the science. Your brain is hardwired for social acceptance. It's a survival mechanism from our tribal past. But in today's world, this ancient programming is causing more harm than good. This is the likability paradox. The more you chase being liked, the less authentic and ultimately less likable you become. But I need people to like me to succeed, you might argue. Here's the catch. True success and genuine connections come from authenticity, not people-pleasing. Your constant attempts to be likable are actually pushing people away. Chapter 2. The Freedom Dilemma. Likability versus freedom. It's a trade-off that's rarely discussed, but profoundly impacts your life. The more you prioritize being liked, the less free you are to be yourself, to speak your truth, to pursue your dreams. Recent psychology research suggests that people who are overly concerned with being liked are 30% more likely to report feelings of anxiety and depression. It's as if your authentic self is screaming to be let out, while your social-pleasing self keeps it locked away. This is depressing. What's the point of being disliked? But hold on. Understanding the courage to be disliked isn't about becoming a social pariah. It's about liberation. When you realize that you can't control others' perceptions, you can focus on what truly matters. Living according to your values and pursuing your goals. Chapter 3. The Authenticity Paradox. Here's where it gets interesting. If we embrace the courage to be disliked, does that mean we should disregard others' feelings entirely? Absolutely not. In fact, this realization should make you more genuine in your interactions, not less. Think about it this way. When you're not constantly trying to manage others' perceptions of you, you're free to be truly present and authentic. Your relationships become deeper, more meaningful, even if they're fewer in number. This is the authenticity paradox. The less you try to make everyone like you, the more genuine connections you'll form with those who appreciate the real you. Chapter 4. The Power of Boundaries. Now that you understand the illusion of universal likability, what do you do with this knowledge? This is where the real power lies. Boundaries are your superpower. Most people let others' expectations and opinions dictate their lives. But you're now awake to the reality. This awareness gives you an edge. Start setting clear boundaries. Notice how often you say yes when you want to say no. Observe how frequently you compromise your values to avoid conflict. By becoming aware of these patterns, you can begin to break free from them. Chapter 5. Reframing Rejection. Here's a powerful tool. Reframe rejection. Instead of seeing it as a personal failure, view it as a filter that removes incompatible people and opportunities from your life. You didn't choose your innate talents, your passions, or your values, but you can choose to honor them, even when it means facing disapproval. This is the essence of personal growth. Not changing who you are to fit in, but becoming more fully who you already are. Chapter 6. The Strength of Vulnerability. Paradoxically, embracing the courage to be disliked can make you more approachable and relatable. It's like a swimmer who stops thrashing and learns to float. Suddenly, everything becomes easier. Think about the people you most admire. Are they the ones who try to please everyone, or those who stand firm in their convictions, even when it's unpopular? True strength isn't about being impervious to criticism. It's about being vulnerable enough to be your authentic self. Your life is no different. The disapproval you face, the raised eyebrows, the whispers, the criticism, these aren't obstacles to overcome. They're the very elements that prove you're living true to yourself. Chapter 7. The Illusion of Control. Let's tackle a big one. The illusion of control over others' opinions. Society tells you that if you just say the right things, act the right way, you can make everyone like you. But people's opinions are shaped by their own experiences, biases, and insecurities. The COVID-19 pandemic is a perfect example. No matter what stance you took, someone disagreed. But here's what's fascinating. Those who thrived weren't those who tried to please everyone. It was those who stood firm in their beliefs while remaining open to dialogue. This is the paradox of social dynamics. The more you try to control how others perceive you, the more inauthentic and unlikable you become. But when you accept that you can't control others' opinions, you become more genuine and, ironically, more likable to those who matter. Chapter 8. The Choice You Do Have. Now, here's the plot twist. While you can't control whether people like you, there's one crucial choice you always have: how you respond to disapproval. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, put it beautifully: between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. This is your superpower. You can't always choose whether people approve of you, but you can always choose how you respond to their disapproval. This choice of reaction, of perspective, is a foundation of resilience, growth, and ultimately fulfillment. Chapter 9. The Ripple Effect. Understanding the courage to be disliked doesn't mean your actions don't affect others. In fact, they matter more than ever. Every time you stand up for your beliefs, speak your truth, or pursue your passions in the face of disapproval, you create ripples that extend far beyond what you can see. The butterfly effect isn't just a theory in chaos mathematics. It's a reality of human interaction. Your courage to be disliked today could inspire someone else to live more authentically tomorrow. This interconnectedness is both a responsibility and an opportunity. You're not just living your life. You're contributing to a culture of authenticity and courage. Chapter 10. Embracing Criticism. Here's a liberating truth. Not all criticism is bad. In fact, constructive criticism can be a powerful tool for growth. The key is learning to differentiate between valuable feedback and baseless disapproval. Embracing the courage to be disliked doesn't mean being closed off to feedback. It means being open to criticism that aligns with your values and goals, while having the strength to disregard that which doesn't serve your growth. Remember, even the most successful people face criticism. They're just better at using it as fuel rather than letting it extinguish their fire. Chapter 11. The Power of Conviction. In a world obsessed with likes, followers, and approval, the most radical act might be to stand firm in your convictions. Conviction isn't just a buzzword. It's a powerful tool for living fully in a world where disapproval is inevitable. When you're fully convicted in your beliefs and actions, you're not swayed by every criticism or chasing every compliment. You're engaged with life on your own terms. This conviction allows you to respond to life with clarity and purpose, rather than reacting based on others' expectations or judgments. Chapter 12. Redefining Success. It's time to redefine what success means. In a world where the courage to be disliked is rare, success isn't about being universally liked or approved of. It's about being true to yourself and making a meaningful impact. True success is about alignment. Aligning your actions with your values, your work with your passions, your life with your purpose. It's not about accumulating more likes or followers, but about becoming more authentic, more courageous, more alive. Chapter 13. The Ultimate Freedom. Here's the ultimate paradox. Accepting that you might be disliked is the key to true freedom. When you stop expending energy on trying to please everyone, you free up that energy for growth, creativity, and meaningful action. This is the freedom to be fully yourself, to live with purpose and passion, to contribute your unique gifts to the world. It's the freedom that comes from aligning with your true self, rather than constantly shape-shifting to please others. Embracing the courage to be disliked isn't about being intentionally offensive or disregarding others' feelings. It's an invitation to live more authentically, to act more courageously, to love yourself more fully. Because when you embrace this truth, you discover that the real adventure of life isn't in gaining everyone's approval, but in being true to yourself. Remember, you may not have a choice in whether everyone likes you, but you always have a choice in how you respond to disapproval. And that, ultimately, is what defines your life. So choose wisely. Choose to live authentically. Choose to stand in your truth. Choose to make a difference. Because while you can't control others' opinions, your courage to be disliked can change the world.